Good morning and a very warm welcome to the ICDD PhD Toolbox launch. On behalf of the ICDD, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to be here today, and we're happy to have you with us. My name is Tope Alarape, and I am a second-year student studying global political economy and development at the University of Kassel, and I'm also part of the team that's helped put the toolbox together, and today I will be moderating the session. You can also feel free to let us know who you are and where you're joining us from in the chat box. And you can also follow the conversation on Twitter using the hashtags PhD Toolbox and ICDD Live, and follow us on Twitter as well at ICDD Network. Please note that this event is being recorded and we'll head straight into it. But before I do that, I'd like to give you a brief overview of how this event will go. After a welcome address from Professor Dr. Christoph Scherrer, Dr. Ismail Karatepe, the ICDD Graduate School Coordinator, will tell us about the PhD Toolbox. And then Finn will go into detail, and then we'll introduce the PhD Toolbox to us, followed by Reflections for the Future by Professor Dr. Eva Schlitt. In the Q&A section, we want to hear from you, the audience, about any questions that you might have, and please use the Q&A box to ask questions to our panelists throughout the event, also indicating who your question is directed to. You can also upvote questions in the Q&A box or comment on them as well. Without further ado, I'll introduce Professor Christoph Scherrer, and then I'll hand over to him for his welcome remarks. Professor Christoph Scherrer is the Executive Director of the International Center for Development and Decent Work at the University of Kassel, where he's also a professor of globalization and politics. Professor Scherrer has long advocated for e-learning platforms as a means of supporting students in their PhD projects, and has been involved throughout the development process of the ICDD PhD Toolbox, both in an advisory capacity and as a contributor of academic insights. Professor Scherrer.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and I welcome everyone who is now online to our PhD Toolbox presentation. The Toolbox is the product of our international network and our quite profound experience with supporting PhD students, research in the field, and the desk. We learned that PhD candidates, even if they come from different fields, are sharing some common concerns, starting with the question of whether one should do a PhD at all, and going over then to issues like how to link a theory to the empirical evidence from the field there. We called it a PhD Toolbox because it consists of different modules so that one doesn't have to go through all of it if one is only interested in one or two issues. For example, if one has already decided to go for the PhD, then the first tool module is not so necessary. Well, before we present you now the different modules, I want to thank the wonderful team that made it possible, under Ismail and Temitope, Finn, Tonje, and very early on Christian Möllmann. We should not forget about him. And very important, of course, our partners, international partners of the ICDD, and especially our postdocs who had gone through our programs and have now contributed their experience and what they learned and what they want to share now with others. Well, on that note, I want to give over to the next person.
Thank you, Professor Scherrer. And now I will hand over to Dr. Karatepe, who will tell us about the toolbox. Dr. Ismail Karatepe is an economist and political scientist in global political economy at the ICDD, where he's also the graduate school coordinator. Since 2020, Dr. Karatepe has overseen and coordinated the development of the ICDD PhD Toolbox, drawing on the expertise of academics across the ICDD's partnership network in order to help PhD students get a head start on their doctoral studies. Dr. Karatepe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Well, I mean, since May 2019, I have been working as graduate school coordinator, and one part of my jobs is to answer the questions of PhD students as much as I can. Frankly speaking, some questions revolve around more or less same topics. How to conduct expert interviews, or how to do a good PhD research, how to present eloquently, how can I do an ethnographic research, how to write a research proposal, how can I publish my manuscript, what to do after my PhD. Well, of course, as part of my job, I try to answer as if I knew the answers. Of course, I don't have the best answer for these questions. I didn't conduct any ethnographic research. I wouldn't consider myself expert of field research. I didn't teach on different methods and modules. And so basically, I couldn't give those answers. But what PhD Toolbox is doing, PhD Toolbox gathers experts that can actually answer these questions. This is the most important aspect of PhD Toolbox. Thanks to our network in our 4 continents, PhD Toolbox addresses the needs and wishes of the PhD candidates. I should underline one more aspect. It's not only for PhD students. It's quite useful also an MA student as well as BA students who would like to conduct an expert interview or who would like to do a field research. So it can be also very useful too for a postdoc. How to, for instance, how to then conduct an expert interviews. One definitely can click our PhD Toolbox and find answers. This is why we call it Toolbox, because it addresses the needs of students. You may have recognized there are thousands of videos right now available in YouTube. And what is special with PhD Toolbox is we definitely confine our attention to the possible question of students. We think of their needs, or we definitely think how can be beneficial to PhD candidates. So they can definitely select what they need, and they can benefit from it. And most importantly, they can directly connect to the experts. We don't know all answers, but I can assure you all, the experts of PhD Toolbox, they are the experts, and they can give very full-fledged answer to questions that you may have. One little note. A PhD Toolbox is a collective action of ICDD partners, ICDD members, but most importantly, it's also a very good bridge for our ICDD alumni. ICDD alumni has definitely engaged with the PhD Toolbox, produced so many nice videos, and probably they will definitely give new inspirations to PhD candidates. Thank you, Topper. Perhaps we can hand it to the Finn for a full-fledged introduction.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Karatepe. And now Finn will introduce and go into more detail about the PhD Toolbox. Finn Patrick Bourke is completing his MA in Global Political Economy and Development at the University of Kassel. He is a student assistant in the ICDD's graduate school and has provided organizational and editorial support throughout the production of the PhD Toolbox series. He also co-manages the digital learning platform Open Model, which the ICDD uses to share the PhD Toolbox. Finn, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So I'm going to detail the key contents and features of the ICDD PhD Toolbox and show you all how we aim to support PhD students in their studies through this comprehensive resource. Oopsie. So firstly, we delve into the PhD process with our videos, Should I Do a PhD? And Life After PhD. So beginning with the former, we hear from current and former PhD candidates about their experiences of doing the PhD, touching on a number of important considerations when it comes to a PhD. So they reflect on what motivated them to do a PhD, the extent to which it met their expectations, the competencies and critical skills they feel are important for doing a PhD, resources they feel are vital for doing a PhD, and then bringing it all together, they say in short, why and why not to do a PhD. Alongside these videos, we provide a checklist for students to fill out upon viewing them, and then a written postscript from one of our interviewees, Dr. Gaia Yilmaz, a guest lecturer at the ICDD. Meanwhile, in the latter, Dr. Isanda Benya, lecturer in sociology at the University of Cape Town, speaks with 5 PhD graduates about the end of their doctoral studies. So these discussions enable viewers to both get an insight into and a head start on preparing for life after they complete their PhD. So the participants discuss how they went about preparing for life after the PhD, their experiences of the transition into post-PhD life. Moreover, they reflect on the thought processes and real-world circumstances that took them down their current career paths and how they approach the matter of financial planning. They also discuss skills they feel warrant greater attention with respect to doctoral education, and also provide some advice for students preparing to enter the job market. And to end, they touch on the importance of focusing on wellness as one completes a PhD, come to terms with the end of the PhD and letting go of your project. And some interviewees share their most rewarding experiences after completing their PhDs. And to supplement the videos, we include a short summary of the videos on Open Moodle written by me that synthesizes the key points from the videos. Secondly, we look at proposal writing with Professor Eva Schlecht, co-director of the ICDD Graduate School, and Alexander Dragonic, academic coordinator of Global Labour University. So throughout their discussion, they give advice to aspiring doctoral scholars about how to put together PhD proposals that maximize their prospects of winning a grant. So the videos highlight the need for careful consideration regarding the research topic, the overarching aim of the thesis, the structure of their proposal, preparing a timetable and budget, the matter of funding and seeking out potential donors, the importance of following formal guidelines, when to start writing the proposal, and when to reach out to potential supervisors. So alongside a link to the scholarship database of the DAAD, we also provide the video materials prepared by Dr. Schlecht for these videos, namely a guide to preparing spreadsheets such as a timetable and a budget table, and an example final structure of the PhD proposal. Following this, we explore interdisciplinary research design with Dr. Deblala Saha, lecturer at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Assam, India. Dr. Saha provides an overview of how students can go about drawing on different branches of knowledge simultaneously as part of their social science research, for example, their doctoral studies. He discusses what exactly a discipline is, how new disciplines emerge, the different approaches through which one can combine disciplines in order to carry out research, and the subtle but important differences between them. Focusing in these videos on interdisciplinarity, he details how to apply such an approach to academic research and the importance of methodological integration for interdisciplinary research. Dr. Saha was kind enough to share his PowerPoint with us so students can download it from Open Moodle and dig deeper into the subject in their own time. Next, we move to the topic of literature. So firstly, lecturers at the ICDD with University of Kassel specifically, Ana Pinto Garcia and Katharina Stanzel discuss literature, research, and management. Specifically, they lay out the strategies through which one can minimize the organizational and administrative burdens that come with carrying out academic research. They ask questions, when should you start your literature search? Why should you do a literature review? How can you go about finding this literature and subsequently organize it? Finally, they highlight the utility of using a reference management system, an RMS, during one's studies, and provide an additional guide sheet put together by the Technical University of Munich so that students can find the RMS that's right for them. Secondly, we turn to literature reviews with Professor Stefan Zording, Chair of Supply Chain Management at the University of Kassel. So Professor Zording clarifies the role and use of theory in literature reviews and the different approaches through which students can apply or develop theories in literature reviews. He goes into the core elements and aims of both theory itself and literature reviews, and how to use keywords as a starting point for collecting the literature whose content will subsequently be analyzed for the review. To show examples of using theory in literature reviews, he draws on his own research in sustainable supply chain management in order to compare the different possible approaches. And to enable students to look into this topic further, we've uploaded Professor Zording's presentation to the learning platform. We then go into possible research methods for the PhD, specifically qualitative research methods, beginning with expert interviews and document analysis. In the former, Dr. Manish Kumar, Assistant Professor of Economics at the University of Delhi, poses questions to Professor Praveen Jha, seen here, of Jawaharlal Nehru University, who provides us with tips for organizing interviews with experts whose insights could prove valuable to one's doctoral research. So Manish and Praveen discuss a number of important issues, namely the role of experts, how to use expert interviews in academic research, identifying experts, preparation for interviews, different forms of interviews, structuring interviews, and the matter of recording the interview, and importantly, tackling the question of researcher biases. Turning now to document analysis, Dr. Madeleine Moore, postdoc at the University of Bielefeld and an alumnus of the ICDD, talks to us about coding, that is, the means by which a researcher can go about categorizing their data in order to carry out analysis. Dr. Moore details what kind of documents you can analyze, what coding is exactly and the steps it entails, and then provides us an example using her own PhD research. This is followed by a video tutorial on how to make use of data management software, in this case NVivo, to help one keep track of the research process and keep their analysis practicable. In addition to the videos, Dr. Moore has also provided a list of further readings for students to refer to, which we have uploaded to OpenMoodle. Continuing on with research methods, we have ethnography and field research. For the former, we once again have Dr. Benya, who discusses what ethnography is, instances where researchers use ethnographic research, and she provides us an example using her experience researching female underground platinum miners in South Africa. She then discusses the important considerations before doing ethnography, the central aspects of doing field work, and a contemporary issue here, the impact of COVID-19 on ethnographic research. Dr. Benya also provides a list of further readings for OpenMoodle so students can learn more about this approach. In our videos on field research, meanwhile, Professor Thales Peña of the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Brazil goes over what exactly field research is, aspects for students to consider and steps to take before conducting field research, context in which conducting field research makes sense and how to go about it, the key features of data collection, and the pros and cons of this type of research. Finally, he discusses the different methods one can employ for field research should one want to incorporate this into their methodology. Additionally, Professor Peña has prepared a text that students can read, which provides a direct account of two different contrasting experiences he had conducting field research in Brazil. After this, we look at the topic of theory and data with Dr. Karatepe and Professor Scherrer. They discuss the relationship between theory and data in the academic context, specifically how one can go about establishing the link between one's theory and the data and case in question. Moreover, they explore the importance of defining and measuring one's concepts for the successful operationalization of one's theoretical framework. In this section of the toolbox, we provide a list of further readings, along with a journal article written by Professor Scherrer, in which he demonstrates the process of linking theory with empirical evidence. We subsequently address the topic of presentation skills, discussed by Dr. Martin Vila, with the help of a student who may look familiar to some of you. Dr. Martin Vila is a lecturer in international rural development at the University of Kassel, and with 3 presentations which together demonstrate a progression in competency vis-a-vis presenting one's research, Dr. Vila gives students advice on how to avoid some of the common mistakes in presenting, and instead put together a presentation with a consistent format and style, an accessible layout, along with proper gesturing, positioning, and attention to the formal aspects of presenting. Finally, we look at 2 topics of great importance when a PhD student has finished writing their thesis, namely the PhD defense and publication strategies. In the former, Dr. Christian Müllmann, academic coordinator at the University of Tübingen, goes over the basics of preparing for the PhD defense and then discusses steps students can take in order to deliver a focused and compelling presentation of one's academic research and their findings. And this section complements the series on presentation skills by providing suggestions on how to put this together specifically for PhD defense. He also provides insights into the preparation for the question and answer part of the defense and what one should expect from the examining committee, and then gives advice on how students can ensure that the setting of the defense is such that one can solely focus on the oral examination itself. Together with these videos, Dr. Müllmann has prepared a list of further resources students can look into regarding the defense, which is now up on Open Moodle. Lastly, after the defense, students often think about publishing their work. And in this regard, Dr. Karatepe speaks with Dr. Alexander Gallas, Assistant Professor of Political Science at the University of Kassel, and they discuss important considerations for getting one's academic research out into the public realm. They discuss what academic publications are exactly, different types of academic publications, the importance of journal articles, how to go about publishing original ideas and the PhD itself, and then conclude with some recommendations for ICDD students. Alongside the videos, Dr. Gallas has prepared step-by-step guides to publishing a peer-reviewed journal and a research monograph, and also to give an example of some venues for academic research. We provide on Open Moodle some links to the ICDD's Labor and Globalization book series and the Global Labor Journal, where Dr. Gallas is a member of the editorial board. I'm conscious of time, so I'll finish up here by discussing the extra resources section of the toolbox. This is something we recently decided to include in order to make sure that the PhD toolbox is as comprehensive as possible. So after a workshop we had in December, we decided that it was worthwhile addressing quantitative methods alongside the qualitative methods which are discussed in our videos. So we've uploaded a text which goes over this topic, quantitative methods, so that students can learn about how statistical analysis and engaging with numerical data can help one boost the explanatory power of their arguments. And this is an example of other resources that we will upload on the back of further collaboration with our colleagues and in response to suggestions we receive from students enrolled in the PhD Toolbox. So just to conclude, I'll just say that this toolbox is an endeavor by us here at the ICDD Graduate School and our partners in the ICDD to put together a comprehensive, systematic resource to guide students through their doctoral studies, and it's an evolving medium that's going to continue to grow on the back of your engagement. So thanks for your attention and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, Finn. Thank you for your presentation. And before we move on to the next round, I'd like to remind you that if you have any questions, you can please put them in the Q&A box so that we will answer them in the discussion round. Now, Professor Dr. Eva Schlecht will talk us through the reflections for the future. Professor Eva Schlecht lectures at the Faculty of Ecological Agriculture at the University of Kassel, and she's also one of the directors of the Graduate School of Socio-Ecological Research for Development at the ICDD. Professor Schlecht has been an active contributor to the development of the ICDD PhD Toolbox and indeed features in the series with her videos on writing proposals. Professor Schlecht.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'll try to share my screen. Hope you can see it. So my task is to look at the future, and I try to do this in 3 steps. First, look at the future of the ICDD toolbox, then at the future of scientific careers of you, the users, and then have a general brainstorming on future research topics that may be relevant for all of us. Looking first at the future of the toolbox. Well, as you see, we'll make the toolbox now available to you on the website of the ICDD, and it will remain here at least until the end of 2023. After that, it may migrate, but only very approximately, to the website of the Global Partnership Network. This is a new DAAD Exceed Center at the University of Kassel, which is dedicated to the SDG 17. If you use the ICDD toolbox, you may notice gaps. Finn has already talked about that. And you would probably like to have another short video edit. So please feel free to send us your suggestions and comments. Of course, we cannot promise that we will be able to respond to all of your requests. And even though the conceptualization of the films and the work of the speakers were in most cases voluntary, the filming and the post-production do cost money. But if several people express the need for a particular teaching content and we can secure funding, we will try, of course, to expand the toolbox and enhance its usefulness for all of you. The use of the toolbox is in your hands. You have a lot of flexibility in choosing the tools you need, and you can use them once or repeatedly. However, any tool should always be used wisely. As far as our videos are concerned, this means that they will not effectively help you if you play them while you're preparing dinner or post your daily messages on Instagram. To be of use, you need to watch them attentively and perhaps repeatedly, and maybe even take notes down in your PhD journal. The future of you as scientists. Well, if you use our videos seriously, then the toolbox with its various short films should help you not only to do good science, but also to present your research ideas, concepts, and results effectively and successfully, be it to get funding, to give a scientific talk, or to avoid rejection of a manuscript. All of these aspects will come up in the course of your PhD journey. Yet, the decision to pursue a career in science goes beyond the 3 to 4 years of PhD phase. You will certainly, in this journey, change the way you think and work. With every PhD seminar, every conference paper, every manuscript or book chapter that you are conceptualizing and handing out, you will certainly have shortcomings and mistakes, but also get positive feedback and have the feeling of success. And with each of these small feedbacks, you will learn and you will become better and in the end, hopefully reach perfection. So we hope to contribute to a positive learning outcome with our toolbox and if in the future you yourself are working at an academic institution as a lecturer or as a professor and train your students, then we hope that our toolbox, among other materials, supports you in teaching your BSc, MPhil, and PhD students. Now, for the future of research topics, what should you do in your PhD and maybe in your further careers? It's of course your decision. But apart from astrophysics or similar far-reaching, highly specialized fields of science where the toolbox probably is not suitable either, we at the University of Kassel believe that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are not only important in general, but they designate extremely relevant research fields for the social sciences, the natural sciences, and the humanities. And this is why the University of Kassel recently founded the Kassel Institute for Sustainability. The planned 17 chair groups of this institute will essentially reflect the 17 SDGs, and the institute's professors will conduct inter- and transdisciplinary research, especially on the connections between individual sustainable development goals. The Institute will also strengthen sustainability-related teaching at our university and open up new international study programs. I believe that the research of most of you is also related to at least one, if not more, of the 17 SDGs. Therefore, your work is of great importance because if we, as a global community of citizens and scholars, do not achieve these goals, your future as that of the younger generation, and especially the future of your children, will face existential challenges far beyond what we are already experiencing today. So let us all work together and do good science, not only for our professional interests and reputation, but also to collectively contribute making the SDGs a reality as stipulated by the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Schlett, for your presentation. Now we want to hear from you, the audience, and explore questions that you have put in the Q&A box. And if you do still have any questions, please type them up in the Q&A box. And I can start off the question round by asking Ismail and anyone else who would like to answer can feel free to do so. That there are several e-learning videos on the internet. There are a lot of helpful courses that people take to help with their research studies. How, for example, do you think the ICDD PhD Toolbox is different from the other ones?
Well, I actually try to explain it a little bit in my part, but probably I should elaborate it a little bit more. You are right. I mean, there are several good videos that are circulating around. Especially the most known one is perhaps MIT videos. They are really good. Here, our aim is not to compete with the existing videos or existing e-learning programs. We confine our attention definitely needs of our PhD students. By doing that, we are always PhD students in the global. We always keep the PhD students in the global south in the mind, meaning that the videos that are produced and that are available right now on the internet sometimes rely on typical Anglo-Saxon education system and take a lot of things for granted. But PhD Toolbox videos are also considering the needs and possible questions of also PhD students coming from Turkey, coming from Zimbabwe, coming from Brazil or India. So we try to explain everything as much as we can during our in our videos. So it's one of the actually main feature that distinguish our modules from the others. Another important aspect is the way how we then articulate the language, meaning that the language that we use, I mean, it doesn't matter whether the lecturer is native or not, but the language that we use is pretty much accessible to not only those who can master the English language, but also to the others. Meaning that we would like to also increase our coverage by providing the simplest English as much as we can. This is another important aspect of videos. And again, probably at the expense of repeating myself, I would like to highlight one more time. The PhD Toolbox is addressing the needs and wishes of the PhD students. It's not the place where the lecturers lecture. It's the place where the lecturers try to actually then address the possible questions of the PhD candidates. So I think these features distinguish PhD Toolbox to a certain degree from all other videos available on the internet.
Thank you, Dr. Karatepe. And I can see that there's a question on how, what username and password to use as a GP and associate, and I would ask Finn to please show us a demo on how to sign up on Open Moodle to access the videos.
Thank you for the question. All right, let me bring up my screen again. So here's the link to the Open Moodle login page. We have included that in a little handout that we have on our Toolbox page. So for setting up your account, you create your new account here. Now I'm currently logged in, so I'll log out so that I can show you. And then you will provide certain details. You provide a username and a password, and then an email address. It can be a work email or a personal email, as far as I know. Tope, correct me if that's not the case, but I believe that is true. And then you fill in your details, and that will create your new account, and then you will receive a link in your email address, and that will take you back, and that will take you to this main menu here. In order to find the course and enroll, simply search for ICDD PhD Toolbox. It will come up, and we have the enrollment settings such that there is no enrollment key required and that you can freely enter and enroll yourself into the course.
Thank you, Vin, for the quick demo. And yeah, just maybe one last question to Professor Scherrer. You did write your PhD a while ago. What was the process like, and how do you think you would have benefited from a PhD toolbox of some sort to help you?
Well, my experience was probably a little bit different. I talked to my PhD supervisor 3 times in the 4 years it took me to finish my PhD thesis. So at that time, one was pretty much on one's own and friends. That, I think, helped a lot. But I believe PhD Toolbox would probably also have supported me a bit more, especially then in relationship to the issue of methods and so on, and to listen then to experts on these kind of matters. I didn't need this first one concerning whether one wants to do a PhD. That was an old dream of mine, so that was not so necessary. But the other PhD toolbox modules, I think, would have supported me. Also the issue on theory and empirical evidence linkages and that, and also publication strategies would certainly have been quite beneficial. I, of course, was able to publish, but it might have been with fewer hiccups to do so.
Thank you, Professor Scherrer. I'm also planning on starting my thesis at the end of the year, and I see how, even though it's a PhD toolbox, it'll help me with starting up and my research at the end of the year. If there are no more questions, if you still have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. But then if there are no further questions, I think we can round this up unless somebody else has anything to say. Okay. Yes, so on behalf of the ICDD, I'd like to thank you for joining this special launch of the PhD Toolbox, and a very special thank you to our panelists today and to all the contributors of the PhD Toolbox with their time and all the effort that they've put in, and also to the team involved in this successful execution. We will share, as we've been doing, share a link to the PhD Toolbox in the chat box, and we'll also invite you to please explore it and share with interested students that you might know as well. You can also follow us on our social media channels for future events and announcements. Thank you for your time today, and please stay healthy and connected, and see you some other time. Thank you.